Along with the near abandonment of government in the favelas, corruption in the higher levels of government trickles down to lower local levels of government, preventing the favela and its residents from growing socially and economically.
The government of Brazil is remarkably similar to that of the United States. It is a federal republic. The country's political system consists of the federal government, state governments, and their constitution, adopted in 1988, gives broad powers to the federal government. However, the states retain much power. The country is divided into 26 states and one federal district. Like the United States, Brazil has an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a judicial branch. The executive branch are an elected president and a vice president. The current president is Dilma Rousseff of the Workers' Party. The president's term is 4 years with a 2-term limit. The president appoints cabinet members. The cabinet of Brazil is composed of many ministers who aid the president with general administration and develop policies. Some of the most prominent ministers include the Chief of Staff, Minister of Finance, Minister of Defense, Minister of External Relations, and Minister of Justice. The legislative branch consists of 81 senators, 3 per state in the federal district, and 513 deputies. Deputies are divided among the 26 states according to population. Senators serve 8-year terms, and deputies serve 4-year terms. They may be reelected indefinitely. At the state level, 2 different tiers comprise the court system. First instance courts exist at the local level. Judges obtain office through a competitive exam. There are specialized courts, for example, bankruptcy and family litigation. A single judge hears cases at this level. Only murder cases use juries. Second instance, courts called justice tribunals handle any cases that are appealed. These courts exist at the state level. Judges in these courts have been promoted from the first instance courts. 3 judges decide the ruling at this level. The Justice Tribunal is the highest court at the state level. The federal court system has 3 levels. Federal courts are used for military justice, electoral matters, and labor litigations. As with state courts, there are first instance courts and second instance courts. A major criticism of Brazil's judicial branch is that the appeals process is extremely slow. Appealed cases may take up to 10 years or longer to resolve.
Brazil has had a long and troublesome history with corruption in the government, from the highest levels of the government to local municipalities and law enforcement agencies. The amount of corruption is massive but largely underrepresented in the Brazilian media and government. This has led to repeated offenses neither being investigated nor prosecuted. The most common type of corruption is embezzlement or superfaturamento. This is such an issue that some sources show that 30% of all public funds are embezzled. Brazil was founded as an independent country when Pedro I took Portugal over and split from his native country. After his son Pedro II took over, only to be overthrown in a military coup, which led to a quasi-republican government. This old republic was filled with military dictators, mass corruption, and the system favoring a wealthy minority. A military dictatorship took control from the years 1964 to 1988. Even though there is little evidence of corruption during this period of Brazilian history, records have started to come available to show the government smuggling luxury goods into and out of the country and using funds to promote personal business ventures. After the fall of the military dictatorship in 1988, a democratic government came to power. This recent government has been plagued with corruption. At the beginning of the democracy, many political parties paid representatives up to $12,000 in US dollars to vote in favor of the party's legislation. Recently, corruption has come to the forefront of the public media with Operation Car Wash. This is a major investigation carried out by the Federal Police of Brazil that was ordered by the Judiciary Branch under the actions of Judge Sergio Moro. It found that a state-owned oil company, Petrobras, used their power to receive funds from construction companies by overcharging the construction companies for job bids. The executives took the extra money they charged the construction companies for personal kickbacks and luxuries. Most politicians at the top level were shown to have ties to this investigation, which even led to former President Dilma Rousseff's impeachment and many more arrests at the top level. At the lower level of government, corruption has trickled down from the top levels. The poor neighborhoods, or favelas, are notorious for harboring criminals, petty and serious. Residents of these favelas face immense poverty and overpolicing. This has led to corruption through the form of bribes and abuses of power by the local police. With the police corruption, many favelas have turned to gangs in order to provide law and order in the absence of the police.
Present-day Brazil is still home to corruption on every level of the government. Instances of this corruption can be seen in the favelas, which are essentially slums and shanty towns outside of the cities. These favelas have been almost completely abandoned by the government, in that there are no social programs to help the poor, and police are rarely active in the areas. This lack of law enforcement allows gangs to operate almost unrestricted in the favelas, and the police are willing to accept bribes to leave the gangs alone, while some police even work with the gangs for mutual benefit. An example of this is drug traffickers in Rocinha, which is the largest favela in Brazil. These drug traffickers made down payments to police of 200,000 reales and payouts of 80,000 reales a month to keep the police away. If the police are actually doing their jobs, though, they will usually show aggression to all residents of the favelas, since they routinely treat all poor people as criminals. This violent relationship between the police and favela residents is only worsened by the presence of the gangs everywhere, giving the government a moral standing for excessive police violence. This rampant police brutality leads the residents of the favelas to see the police as the enemy and sympathize more with the gangs. The gangs have become integrated into all levels of favela life, from sorting out family or relationship issues to mediating relations with the police and to keeping rival gangs away in order to fill the void left by the lack of an effective policing system and social programs. Gangs then become idolized by the younger generation who seek to join the gangs when they grow up, which creates a never-ending cycle of gang life in the favelas. This cycle is worsened by the lack of good social programs and government policies that can help reduce the income gap between races and genders. Without such programs, gang membership becomes an even more attractive way to make money as opposed to traditional work in the favelas, which is seen as demeaning by most residents.
Due to the major events occurring in Rio, like the World Cup and the 2016 Summer Olympics, officials in the upper levels of government, like the state public security secretary and Rio's governor, decide to implement the pacification program to revitalize the favelas by addressing corruption and human rights abuses within them. While the government has a long history of abandoning the citizens of the favelas and ignoring the problems of poverty and violence they face, the pacification program was intended to eliminate some of the negative influences of the favelas by combining law enforcement and social service delivery in hopes of winning the hearts and minds of the people living in the favelas. To do so, their main goal was to turn the police force into something less corrupt, violent, and oppressive, into an entity that would revitalize and bring the community back into the fold of the state. Because of this new program, however, unintended consequences occurred. The pacification police were assigned to areas notorious for being controlled by gangs, and their first order of business was to clear out drug trafficking gangs in order to pave the way for creating links and bonds with the residents, and above all else, prevent the return of criminal activity within the favelas. While the tactic worked by clearing criminals out of the area the UPP occupied, the criminals being swept out simply migrated to another area to continue drug trafficking, meaning the problems that the UPP were trying to eliminate only ceased temporarily. Pacification also became a new round of gentrification for some towns like Vidigal. While gentrification has been occurring in towns of Vidigal since the 1990s with the construction of new middle-class high-rises, property values skyrocketed after pacification deemed this area safe. Because of this, many residents were priced out of their homes, forcing them to move further away, expanding the city's peripheral neighborhoods and furthering the endless cycle of poverty among the favela residents.